So I'm just going to do one thing here. I'm a huge user of social media, so I like to tweet. So I'm going to get a picture of all of you. Perfect. Smile. Beautiful faces. Okay. So that is awesome. All of you have already done this. I know. You have phones. You can take pictures. I mean, this is about Occupy partly, too. Wisconsin, before we even had the news from the corporate media, I'm sure all of you were using social media getting the news. That's powerful. Judy talked a little bit about that. My name is Lorene Oikawa. I'm very pleased to be part of Media Democracy Day. One, because not only of the topic, but also because, as Vincent so eloquently said, labor's not usually, we're invisible. We're not in the corporate media. Or if we're in the corporate media, it's, oh, those bad union folks having a strike or causing some sort of problem. But just show of hands here. Anyone here a union member? Oh, there you go. See, look around, your neighbor. And that's the other thing too, is just the portrayal. What does a union member look like? What does a union activist look like? I'm sometimes surprised in my role when I go out and speak to people and somebody looks at me and says, oh, you're part of the union? You don't look like you're part of the union. So it always begs the question, so what does a union member look like? What does a union activist look like? But I think unfortunately that's part of the society, right? If you never see a portrayal of a particular person, group, organization, or you just see a negative impression, then that's part of what society thinks of as union. So I like the title of this panel, Resistance, Renewal. So what's resistance in terms of the labor movement? Well, all the work that we do that, again, as Vincent said, doesn't get reported in the media. Fighting for equality, fighting for human rights, fighting for fairness, fighting for workers, for families, students, seniors, the unemployed, marginalized. We do all of that, and we need to do more of that. But that's part of the message that doesn't get out there. We've been speaking out on issues of poverty, homelessness, worker safety, and not just union members. We've been involved, you might have heard, there's been some cases, the BC Federation of Labor. We've been working with the mushroom workers, that situation, forestry workers. So there's a number of things that sometimes sneak in there, but there's a lot of work that we're doing that doesn't get out there. Environment. Because, as all of you saw the people that put up your hands, well, it's kind of forgotten that union members, we're part of the communities. We live in communities, some of us are parents, we coach our kids' teams, we're buying groceries, we buy gas, we pay taxes, we're just like everyone else. But sometimes we're portrayed as being this separate entity that has no connection to a community. So that's part of our resistance. Part of the renewal, the reinvigorating, the mobilizing, the organizing, the reaffirming our values of the labor movement. And to me, that's really exciting because it's not just, and I'm glad there's some of you that didn't put up your hand that you're union members, because that means we have some new voices, some new discussions we can have, because that's part of a renewal too, is not only with internal, is reaching out to some of our members who maybe don't attend the union meetings or aren't the activists, but also it's going out broader and it's connecting because we have similar goals and similar values with a lot of community folks, and sometimes we've been separated or we've been told we're separated and we have nothing in common or that we should fear each other. But it's really amazing when we get together and it's like, wow, you're interested in health services for seniors? Well, so are we. You're interested in environmental issues and having healthy communities? So are we. So that's the cool thing about using a tool like social media, using an opportunity like Media Democracy Day to get together, is to have those conversations. Because unfortunately, when we don't have those conversations, we are in separate silos and we don't get together. But the positive, which is really cool about like Occupy Vancouver, for example, is when that message starts coming out from the grassroots. You hear those messages, the messages we've been saying about fighting for equality, and now we're hearing that from the street. So that's that bond for us. So partly with how do we get the message out? What's the labor movement doing? So I can speak for BCGEU. We work with the traditional, the corporate media. We do all the stuff like we have a website, we have a magazine, et cetera, et cetera. But I've really been pushing to use more tools like social media, so Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, and using more of those tools to get that information out. But I guess one thing I want to stress is that the social media, they're tools, they can be really, really effective, but we can't forget the basics. And the basics are that connection of engaging with people, so telling stories and actually having a conversation. It's not just enough to say, oh yeah, I've got my Twitter set up, I've got my website set up, done, check. No, it's more than that. So I wanted to talk to you just briefly about a couple of campaigns that we're working on. And I put some of the information on the side table there as well. So one of the messages that we've been saying for a long time is about public services, and how public services is that great equalizer between, as you've seen that growing gap between the have and have-nots. Public services for the public, makes sense. So it doesn't depend on how big your wallet is. It's there for everyone. Public services means a health inspector that's making sure that food is safe for you to eat. Public services means a social worker who's helping children who've been neglected or abused. Public services, highways maintenance worker who's keeping the roads in good repair. And if I had more time, I could list off all the different public services that affect us every single day. So we've got a campaign that we're working on with our national union called All Together Now, and it's talking about public services. But it's also going to the root causes of the inequity gap, and also that it's a problem with revenue, not having the revenue. With corporate tax cuts, we're not getting the revenue. So the issue, we're saying, it's a revenue problem. And part of this campaign is engaging with people. So we're doing presentations, we're going out, we're speaking not only to our members of other unions, but we're going out to communities and meeting with other folks as well and starting that dialogue to say, here's some information. Did you know? And we have all the facts and different stories. Did you know this? What's your story? What's happening in your communities? So this is one campaign, and you can find more information on altogethernow.nupshi.ca is the website, and I do have some of the brochures on the side here. So part of the revenue issue is also tied to another campaign that we're working on, the Robin Hood tax. So on October 15th, when Occupy Vancouver had a rally, then Labour folks were out there, and BCGEU was out there promoting the concept of a Robin Hood tax. So financial institutions. So if there was a tax, it could be as small as 0.05%, which is basically small change for financial institutions that make so much in profits. But with that amount of money that we could get from that tax, there's so much we could do to help people. And there's more information at robinhoodtax.ca. I also have some brochures on the side. So that's a couple of the campaigns that we've been working on. And we use the tools of social media to get that information out. But it is, again, as I said, the basics of who are union members, what are stories, what's the work that we're doing, how does that help communities, how does that help individuals. So using this one campaign, the All Together Now, getting that information out. We've also done things like flash mobs. We've done different videos using YouTube. And the other thing too is I might solicit you is we're getting people to actually sign an equality pledge. And basically it's just saying that you agree with the principles of tax fairness and the principles of equality. And we're getting people to commit that you sign this, and we ask you to do one thing. Talk to a family member, a neighbor, a coworker. So we really are promoting that sort of grassroots movement of you as individuals have the power, you have the information, we'll support you with tools, resources, but we want you to make that one commitment, talk to one other person. And we know that if you talk to that one person is going to talk to other people as well. And that's how we move the message as well. So that's another thing that we're doing. A different way of getting the message out. So we have statistics, we have reports, we have websites, we have that information. But you know yourself that sometimes the most impactful way of getting a message across is through stories. And what better way to convey the stories than through film? So there is a brochure on the side table. like that. And I also have a flyer. And this is about the Canadian Labour International Film Festival. And I sit on the board of that, of the organization. It's our 3rd annual Canadian Labour International Film Festival, or as we like to call it, CLIF. And CLIF is Canada's only national labour film festival. And with this film festival, we're using films. And these are films about workers, the work that workers do, but also workers' issues. Everything from human rights, environment, health, etc. And through the films, we are telling stories. So, okay, film festival, everybody's heard of film festival. Vancouver's home to so many film festivals, you get that. But what's cool about this concept is, again, we're trying to do a grassroots and make it very accessible. So, any person, individual, organization can join this film festival. So you provide a venue, which could be your living room, a boardroom, or it could be a theater, a union hall. We have secured the rights with the filmmakers to show it, and November is CLIF month. So all across Canada, we have venues, and this is happening in small towns, big cities, and we have these venues, and people can access the films, and then they can show it. So we're really making it a very accessible film festival. So it's not like you have to have huge connections or access to a big theater. So that's one thing with CLIF. And then also we are promoting that not only we have different types of films, documentary, etc., but there's also short films. So everything from a 6-minute film on Ginger Goodwin, for example, that we're showing this year, to longer features. So we're also promoting the making of film and encouraging also people to get involved that way. So to me, it's great because Judy talked about the about being the media, shaping the media, and so that's part of what we're trying to embrace through the labor movement is being part of. We are part of it, but to be even more part of the grassroots movement and join with communities and getting the messages out in different ways. So I just wanted to share. I mean, there's other campaigns and different things I could talk about, but you can always ask me about it. But I just wanted to share those 2 examples of campaigns that we're doing. But I think the main message is that with the communication that we have to look at all the different opportunities and look at the different ways that we can connect and have those conversations. And sometimes we disagree, but for the most part, I think you'll find that there's agreement, there's a commonality, and there's different values, that common goals that we all have, and yet we've been separated. And I think when you see movements like Occupy or Wisconsin, any of those movements, that you can see the power when we get together. So the key piece is, how do we get together? So that first piece is that communication piece and building on that. So I appreciate any questions that you have, and thank you for coming out on such a rainy, windy, dismal day. And I look forward to your questions later on.